This is the story of last spring when I went on a trip with some friends. I was a senior in college during this time, and spring break came in March. My friend group that was going was the 3 other girls that I lived in a house with at school, and one other. We planned the trip all the way back at the beginning of the school year. We were going to Miami, Florida, which is a popular destination for spring break. There's a good city and beach there, so we were planning to have some fun activities. It was also very cold at the university for us, so we were going to a very warm place in Miami. When spring break came, we all boarded a flight and arrived in Miami on Friday evening. The 5 of us had rented an Airbnb together, which was pretty nice. It was a 3-bedroom house that wasn't that large, but plenty of space for us. It was in a good location, but we saved some money by booking it early. It also wasn't too bad because we split the cost 5 ways. We were staying for a total of 5 days there. The first couple of days went as expected. We went to the beach a lot and to some restaurants and bars nearby, as well as some other places. There were lots of places that we could go pretty close by. Many were within walking distance, or else we would take Ubers or public transportation. Some of the time we would split up a bit, but usually all of us did stuff together. Now, on I believe the 3rd night, we had been out until maybe 10 o'clock or so. Then we all went back to the Airbnb. We had been out since pretty early in the day and most of us were tired. However, I wasn't. I was pretty hungry and wanted to go and get some snacks. I asked anyone if they wanted to come with, but everybody declined. One of my friends did offer to come, but didn't want to get anything, so I said it was fine. I left the Airbnb by myself and started walking towards the street with a lot of places on it. It would take only about 10 minutes to walk to a convenience store. I just had to go back a block or 2 and then take a left. Then I started walking along the street. Now, this street had hotels, restaurants, and some stores on it. By now, it wasn't as busy anymore, but there was still cars driving by here and there and some people walking. I was walking along the sidewalk, looking for a convenience store or something. I was sure that I had seen one before, but I couldn't remember exactly quite where it was. So not long at all after I started walking on this sidewalk, a car came driving up. I had heard it coming up from behind me, but it seemed to slow down right as it was passing. Then the car pulled over about 10 feet in front of me on the side of the road. I thought it was probably an Uber dropping somebody off or something. The car was a black Cadillac sedan, I remember. After coming to the side of the road, I remember seeing the front passenger side window roll down. That was the window that was closest to me. The other windows were pretty tinted, and right when I was almost even with the front passenger side window that was rolled down, I heard a voice. The guy driving called out to me and asked me if I needed a ride. I didn't, and I looked over and said no thanks. The guy driving was wearing sunglasses, and then he told me to hop in. I said no thanks once more, and then just kept walking. Then I watched the car pull away from the spot. I found this situation sort of weird. What made this guy think that I was going to get into his car with him? I had no clue who he was. The car drove away down the street after that, and I kept on walking. Probably less than 5 minutes later, I was still walking on that same sidewalk. Then I heard a car approaching from behind again. I thought nothing of it until I heard it slowing down. When it passed me by, I saw that it was the same Cadillac. This got me a little worried. Once more, it pulled over a little bit in front of me on the side of the street. When it did, I kind of moved to the right a little to be farther away. After the car stopped though, this time the back door opened. When it did, I saw a man step out. The guy started immediately walking towards me. Nobody said anything, and I started walking away from him. I looked around, and nobody else was in the immediate area. I actually started running, and found basically the closest building that was open. It was some kind of restaurant, and I ran for the door and went inside of it. After making it inside, I looked back out. The guy did not follow me to the door, but I saw him walking down the sidewalk just past. Then he turned around and started walking back. I stayed just inside in the small lobby of the restaurant. I watched the guy walk around the sidewalk for like a minute, then returned to the car. When the car drove away once again, I finally left. I walked really fast to the convenience store, which luckily wasn't that far away. I stayed in there for a long time, just in case the car came back around again. Then I walked back as fast as I could. Luckily, I didn't see the man again after that. The rest of the trip was fine, but I was always more careful to look around after that experience. This happened back when I was in high school. I remember that at my school, we would have a spring break that lasted an entire week. It was sometime in March, I believe, and I know that it became a tradition for my family to go on a vacation in that time. We lived up north, and usually would travel somewhere warm down south or something. So on this year in particular, I was a sophomore, and my brother was a senior in high school at the time. We took a family vacation to the beach, and flew there at the start of the weekend. The trip was going to be about a week long, and we were staying in a hotel. The hotel was very close to the beach, and you could walk there. After we flew down there, we were able to go to the hotel pool that night because it was a little bit later. The next day, though, we went to the beach for the first time. I remember that I went into the water at first, but then I went back to our chairs. We had a few chairs with our stuff at them, and the beach was pretty busy this day. My parents and brother were all in the water, and I was a ways away. I started to sunbathe and relax while everyone else played in the water. I would say about 15 minutes into this, and this creepy guy approached me. I remember that out of nowhere, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I jumped up really fast because it startled me. When I looked, I saw a guy standing there. He was probably 40 years older than me, and had messy hair and a scraggly beard. From the start, he was acting creepy. As if it wasn't bad enough to do that, he said hi to me and asked me what I was doing. I didn't really know what to say. I was just like, nothing, I'm just sitting here. Why? Then he said something like he saw me from a ways away and thought I looked pretty good. I told the guy that I was in high school and I asked him to go away. He said okay, and then slowly walked a little ways back. I returned to what I was doing and laid down and closed my eyes, but I just felt like he might still be watching me. So after about a minute, I sat up and looked around. When I did, I saw the guy just standing there like 50 feet away and staring in my direction. I decided to go back in the water after that, so I went into the ocean and found my parents and brother. They were all playing with one of those inflatable beach balls. I joined in and I told them that there was a creepy guy who had come up to me. My dad then went back up to the shore with me to our stuff, and I looked around. The guy was gone by now, though. I looked all around the beach area but couldn't find him. He could be anywhere by now. After that, I stuck with my parents for the rest of the time at the beach that day. For the rest of that day, my family and I did some other fun stuff. We went to some local attractions and restaurants and whatnot. We got back to the hotel that night and were hanging out just before bed. I remember that I was really thirsty, and I said I was going to go down to the lobby to get something. So I left our hotel room and took the elevator down to the lobby. There was a small area with food and beverages where you could buy something. So when I got to the lobby, things were really quiet with it being later at night. It was also a somewhat big area. When I made it down there, I went to the drinks and got a water. It was at that point that I looked back to where I had come from and saw the same guy from the beach. It really took me by surprise, and I instantly was nervous. He was staring at me just like before. I went up to the counter and told the front desk worker my room number. I tried to ignore the guy as I did. After I started walking back out of the lobby, I saw him get up. He started walking closer to me, and he even said hi. I didn't even say hi back to him. I just ran away for the elevators. The guy didn't run after me, but I didn't want to wait for the elevators, so I remembered that I went up the stairs instead. I didn't know why he was in the lobby, if he was staying at the same hotel or what. When I got back upstairs, I told my parents how I saw the creepy guy again. The next day was fine. I didn't see him at all or anything. But the day after that, I did. My brother and I wanted to do some more swimming, but it was nighttime. We had been gone for most of the day. The hotel pool was nice because it remained open really late, and it was also outside. There was a bar area near it, and overall, it was a pretty good pool. So we went down there, and I don't remember what time it was exactly. My brother jumped in the pool and started swimming in it. I got in, but was in the pool for no longer than 5 minutes before I saw the guy enter the pool area. I was so creeped out by seeing him again that I wanted to leave right away. I got out of the pool, dried off, and then started walking out of there. I remember noticing him staring at me once again. When I left the pool area, I was just trying to go back to the hotel room, but the guy started walking after me. I went down the hallway and heard him walking as well. I got towards the elevators and pushed the button for one, but the guy came up like he was going to wait for one too. So at that point, I quickly turned and went for the stairs. I heard the guy walking after me as well. I entered the stairwell and I heard the guy enter. He was about 15 feet behind or so. I walked up to the floor that we were on and I entered the hallway. The guy was still behind me. I had a hotel key, luckily, and then I started sprinting for the door. And surprisingly, the man started sprinting after me. I made it to the door and was struggling to get the key in. I was nervous and fumbling all around with it. I could hear the guy getting closer. Then, finally, I got the door open. I ran inside and slammed the door behind me. The guy actually tried opening it, even though my parents were in the room. My parents were watching a movie on the TV and asked me what was going on. I told them that the creepy guy chased after me. They got up and my dad left the hotel room. I remember that the guy was gone by then though. After that, we went down to the front desk and reported him. And after that night, I didn't see the man for the rest of the trip. I was always looking out for him though. I don't know who he was, but that was one of the biggest creeps I've ever seen. "5 years ago, when I was in college, I went on a spring break trip. I was traveling with my best friend Mackenzie, who was also my roommate. We chose to go to New Orleans on this year, and neither of us had been there before. When we got there, we both checked into our hotel room. It was right on the edge of downtown, and about average. We were both students, so we couldn't afford anything that fancy. We were staying there for almost a week and had lots of things planned. The first couple of nights, we went out to some bars and restaurants. I think it was like the third day that we were there, I started getting these creepy text messages. Out of nowhere, I got a message on my phone that said, "Hey." When I asked who it was, they didn't answer, but they told me to come outside. I thought that it was the wrong number, and I told them that, but then they mentioned my name. They said that they were in New Orleans as well. I was really creeped out by this. I talked with Mackenzie about it, and we couldn't think of who it could possibly be. At this point, it was still pretty early in the night, and Kenzie and I were going out. So after we left, we were at this bar, and it was pretty busy. I noticed that I got another text when I was there. The text from the person said that they were also at the bar and they saw me. This was really creepy, because nobody knew that we were there other than us two. Now I knew this was no joke, and I wondered who it was. But it could have been anyone inside there, and the place was so busy. There was no way of knowing who it was. I texted back, asking who it was, but didn't get a response that I was hoping for. The response said, "Go out back." I wasn't going to do this, obviously. It could be dangerous to go into an alleyway behind the bar to meet some creep that somehow had my number and knew who I was. I didn't respond to this. Instead, I looked around carefully, hoping to see somebody staring at me in a creepy way or something. But I really couldn't tell. I showed the text to Kenzie and we decided to leave. We had been there for a while, so we would have gone back anyways. So we left the bar and walked back to our hotel, which was maybe a 10-minute walk. On the way back, I was careful and looked behind us, but didn't notice anything unusual. There were some people walking along the sidewalk, but no way of knowing if it was suspicious or not, because it was a straight shot back to the hotel, and a decent number of other people were out walking. So we got back to the hotel and went up to our room. Then I was going to go to bed pretty soon. In the meantime, I was just sitting on my bed and scrolling through my phone. Probably like 15 minutes after getting back, suddenly somebody knocked on the door. I didn't want to get up and answer it. I had a feeling that it was the creep who was texting me. I checked my phone, but there were no new messages on it. Then whoever was there tried entering our room, but the door was locked. I then walked over to the door. By the time I got there though, the person must have left because I didn't see anybody. I even opened up the door and looked around the hallway, but saw nothing. Then I went back inside. I was talking with Mackenzie for a little while about the whole ordeal. That's when I started getting texts again. First, they said, "You should have answered your door." Then they were telling me to come out of my room. This had gone too far in my mind, and I called the police. I told them that I thought I was being stalked, and somebody tried entering my hotel room. They said they would be there in about 5 minutes. So I waited a little while, and then I texted the person to come to my room and I would answer the door this time. They ended up coming back to the door and knocking on it again. I still didn't answer it, but the police arrived right after that. They met the guy in the hallway. After that, I came out of the room and I spoke with the police as well. The person the police found was in fact the same one who was texting me. It was a guy who I had never seen before. He looked pretty young, maybe in his 20s. The police did a bit of an investigation, and they found out that the guy had seen me and found out I was staying at this hotel. He must have followed me or something. He then apparently had a good friend who worked at the hotel. He asked his friend for my name and number, which he was able to look up, and then gave it to him. The friend ended up being fired for his actions. I'm not sure what would have happened if the police didn't get there when they did. I don't know what the guy was planning to do. I'm really glad that it all worked out though.